afternoon. We are just going to give this a couple of moments for everybody to jump on. But we're excited to chat today. This is a live session. Sometimes our webinars are pre-recorded. But this is live. So if you have questions as we go, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat and I'll try to incorporate them as we chat today. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and get us started, and as people join, they can jump in. It's so nice to see you here today. We're talking a little bit more about the state of healthcare marketing. We've seen a lot of change in the way that marketing can impact the sales process over the last 12 months. We anticipate a lot of change again over the coming 12 months. So it will be a great conversation today to talk about what's happened, what is happening right now, and what changes we see creating the biggest impact moving forward. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about 2025, what happened, what defining trends we're anticipating for this year. If you talk to me, you know we believe in a multi-attribution touch point for marketing to support the sales process, and we have recently identified that 22 touch points is the kind of baseline for converting a prospect into a potential buyer. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like for your organization and how you can identify the right framework for your outreach strategy. What you should be investing in, what you should not be investing in, how to allocate your budget to make the biggest impact this year, and then how you can create a 90-day implementation roadmap to really start seeing results. I am Courtney Galster. I am the founder and president of Amplify Companies. We own Amplify Marketing and Brivio Health Insights. I have a background in healthcare marketing, professional services marketing, essentially digital marketing to support the sales process in high compliance industries. And Amplify is our marketing arm. So we partner with clients in those spaces to create stronger results for the sales team by implementing strategic digital marketing. It's where a lot of our knowledge and insight is going to come from today. We also own Brivio Health Insights, which is a health thought leadership platform. More of a recent development. We started that company last year, and we have started to amplify into digital events and thought leadership opportunities for other experts in the field. So you will see a lot more coming from us over the coming 12 months. If you have content that you would like to share with us to potentially publish on our platform, or if you have content ideas, things you'd like to learn more about in the areas of marketing, sales, operations, HR, culture, we welcome those. So please feel free to reach out after this session. You can reply to the email that you received, or you can grab our contact information at the end of this event. Today, we're going to focus a lot on how we win. So I like to look at, I'm competitive. Most of our clients are very competitive, and we want to know how we can win more deals, win more customers. How do we win in marketing? How do we win in capturing more market share? So a lot of today's presentation is going to be focused on how do we win? How do we create more opportunities? How do we convert more prospects? All of those things that are really important for the ROI of your marketing plan. How do you get more value out of the activities that you're investing in? And this is not wanting to load the photos. So my presentation looks a little funny, but the content will remain the same. So what drove last year's growth for a lot of our customers and a lot of others in the industry? There were a lot of different things that happened that really shifted the way that companies were using marketing for success. So one of those things was content strategy. And if you have been paying attention in marketing over the past couple of years, there's been this huge shift towards storytelling in marketing and telling kind of elaborate stories and client stories and explaining the why behind why you built your company, why you are working in this industry, why someone should buy from you. And what we've seen over the last year is a shift away from that. So there is a lot of content out there. Some of that's due to the rise of AI, and some of it's just due to the volume of content that companies are sharing today. and people's attention spans have gotten much shorter. The content that's performing the best, the content that's creating results, is really focused on ROI. That's really that what's in it for me, kind of coming back to that old 2015, 2016 strategy of always speaking to value. So instead of storytelling, you should be telling value. You should be providing value. Action-oriented content performs really well. Anything that really incorporates ways to improve outcomes performs really well. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we dive into today's presentation. The rise of AI has been huge. I mean, I don't think you can avoid AI in really any category of business today. Marketing is no exception to that. But because of that rise of AI, we've seen a renaissance in blogging. Blogging was very, very popular in the 2010s to the 2016 era, and kind of started to see a decline after that with the rise of social media. Social media became the new blog outlet. We've seen a rise, a resurgence of blog impact over the last couple of years, and especially last year. The reason for that is people are more focused on SEO, search engine optimization, driving leads to your site through Google search results. They're also really focused on AEO, which is essentially AI search optimization. So how can you get your company's solutions to pop up when people are searching for queries in your space on AI? That's going to continue to expand over the next year. We're seeing search engines produce their own versions of AI search that is separate from traditional search engine search, where we would see SEO create the results. The algorithms are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, it's still very much based upon how much content and how relevant your content is on your site. That relevance is what's changed, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We've also seen an expansion of the sales cycle. The sales cycles just keep getting longer. It's taking more and more interactions with a prospect before they're willing to have a conversation with you. And that's because they're inundated with messaging. So there's a lot of competing messages out there. It takes a lot more to stand out. And that creates more of a strained budget situation because you need to create more content in order to be relevant to people. So what that has driven is this need for very strategic, I call it bootstrap marketing, but it's really not that anymore. We just need consistent strategic marketing that's going to keep that same message in front of our prospects on a more regular basis. And sometimes people feel like when you take that strategy, you're kind of repeating yourself over and over again. And that's really the point, is that you're consistently pushing the same message to a prospect so that they know exactly who you are, exactly what you do. And by telling them over and over again, there's no question that you can solve the problem that they have when they have it. And then the other problem is actually a HR problem that we have seen, a trend in HR that has really impacted marketing, which is decreasing executive tenure. Today, we see executive tenure at 18 months or less, which is almost not even enough time for a new executive to get completely onboarded within an organization, let alone become a subject matter expert. And since subject matter experts are so critical to positioning yourself as a leader in your space, that's a challenge that you're going to have to work to overcome this year. So what does that mean? Who won in 2025? Companies that we saw gain considerable market share in 2025. The reason that they won was actually less about the tactics that they used and more about the consistency with which they implemented those tactics. So if they implemented consistently with 5 marketing tactics that were really targeted to support the sales process, they probably did better than someone who was relying on a more fragmented strategy, short campaign bursts, or really, really reliant on AI-driven content. The reason for that is that your prospects have picked up on what is AI and what isn't AI. So companies that are just continuously producing AI content for the sake of pushing content out aren't winning. They're not continuing to differentiate themselves in the market. In fact, they're probably oversaturating their market, which is not creating wins for them right now. And with all of that happening in 2025, we're seeing a lot of those trends carry back over into 2026, but with some really strategic pivots. So let's talk a little bit about how those are going to impact your strategy for 2026, and what adjustments making to your marketing to better support your sales process and also better reflect your budget and your bandwidth this year. So with the rise of AI, which is all that anybody really wants to talk about, there has been this differentiation in content, and content that's really clearly produced by a human. So video content, webinar content, photos from events, all of those things, anything that incorporates the human element of your brand is going to help you stand out in an AI saturated market. So for our clients, what we're seeing and what we're recommending is that they invest in more of that type of content when they can. It doesn't mean that AI is the enemy. It doesn't mean that they are not creating static content like they have in the past. It means that they're being more strategic about the balance of content that they're pushing out there. And that is definitely something that you should be considering and being really intentional with as you plan your social media content, your blog content, and your video content this year. Our favorite saying is that AI cannot live in a bubble, which sounds a little bit funny, but it's true. A lot of companies have really adapted to the use of AI, which is great, but they're letting AI dictate their strategy and they're letting AI dictate the content that they're sharing. And I cannot tell you the number of times that AI has told me something about marketing that has been wrong. So we have to assume that that's the case across all aspects of what we're using AI to do, that it's not always correct. AI cannot live in a bubble. It's a great thing for expanding your strategy and for ideation in marketing. It's great for improving your content, but you can't trust AI to create all of the content for you. You can't trust AI to create accurate content for you. And AI does not have the subject matter expertise that you as an individual in your market has or that your team has. And so a lot of the content that AI is going to produce without human intervention is going to be very generic and not help you kind of create the wins that you're looking to create with the prospects that you're talking to. More niche content, things that are going to give prospects really unique insights or give them really unique and actionable ideas of what they can do in their space or solve problems. That's going to help you really create wins because you're providing value in a way that another company really cannot. So the more that you can leverage AI in the right ways and also make sure that you have the right oversight over the AI that you're using in your marketing, the better off you're going to be. A lot of people have expectations that AI is going to become their marketing engine. And actually, I just talked to a client yesterday who is using AI to create all kinds of imagery for them for different presentations that they are pushing out into the world. And they're realizing that their expectation of the content is that AI is going to be able to produce content for presentations in the same way that a graphic designer could. And the technology just isn't there yet. So whatever your expectations are of AI, lower them just a little bit and make sure that you're not setting yourself up for, using something that is cool, but maybe not as great as we all want it to be quite yet. I think we'll get there. I think that we will get to a place where AI can replace some of the cost in marketing. We're just not quite there yet. So as you're thinking about your marketing strategy, what does that mean? It means bringing real faces, real voices, real expertise, and not just relying on the technology to produce that side of your brand for you or to support that side of your brand for you. Tactics that win based on this concept are linked influencers. We're going to talk a lot about the rise of the internal influencer at companies here in a minute. Using video, so getting your people on video and maybe producing little short clips. If you have someone internally that can be kind of the champion of video for your social media or for your website, that is amazing. If you don't, that's okay. And then webinars. Obviously, like webinars are a great way to share your expertise and to get more of the breadth of knowledge from your organization out to your prospects. That is a way that a lot of our clients are bringing new prospects, kind of top of the funnel prospects into their organization in a way that's creating a bigger impact. Because content, like when we get into talking about our tactical strategy and how many touches it takes to get someone to trust you, webinars kind of overcome multiple steps of that process because you're demonstrating and having more connection with people, just like we're talking right here. It's demonstrating more value and more credibility before you have a conversation with someone one-to-one. The second tool that is really creating an impact for our clients, and this is actually one of the pieces that we make a foundational strategy for a lot of our clients, is content. And not content like we traditionally think of content, not evergreen content that's going to live on forever and ever and ever, but really considering well-placed content that's timely, that is reflecting on something happening in the market right now, that goes very deep on a niche topic. That is the type of content that's performing well right now. Generic high level 10,000 foot view content that you can have on your website forever and ever really isn't creating an impact. And the reason for that is comes back to AI. AI can create content like that. That's not unique to you. That's not unique to your website. There's a million other companies out there producing really similar content. So looking at what is unique to you, what knowledge do you have that other companies don't have or that they're not sharing, that's what's going to help you move the needle with content. I actually believe that well-placed content outperforms conferences and events, mostly because if you look at the ROI versus the cost, we get a lot more out of well-placed content than we do out of events. It doesn't mean that events aren't important. It just means I typically recommend that you be more conservative with your spend on events than on content. I also am a big fan of maximizing content, which if you've joined one of our webinars in the past, you know that maximizing content is kind of the key to getting the most out of your content. So when you produce a webinar, let's just say, since we're on a webinar right now, you're going to repurpose the replay of that. You're going to cut clips from that to use across your presence. You're going to take the transcript and maybe write a blog or two out of the content that was shared in the webinar. Maybe write a white paper, let that content live on your website so you can repurpose it in your emails and your newsletter. Like, how many ways can you repurpose that content so that you really get the full value out of the time, effort, and money that goes into producing it? Looking at your ratio of strategic versus promotional content. One of the challenges that companies face is they go down a rabbit hole of really wanting to produce more content. And many companies believe that promotional content that drives towards having a conversation with a sales leader, talking about their products and their solutions and what the impact of those products and solutions is on the customer, is the way to really create a robust content strategy. And that content has a place, but the majority of your content should actually be focused on thought leadership. It may just be industry related content and not related to the services that you offer. Getting more of that value-placed content actually builds a better relationship and helps you move forward faster with prospects than solely sharing content that's driven toward, that is designed to kind of loop someone in to schedule a demo with you or schedule a call with you. I recommend a 3-to-1 ratio at minimum. So 3 pieces of thought leadership to 1 piece of promotional content. That's working very, very well for our clients right now. That may change as this year evolves. I really do think that we're going to see a continuous rise of AI-driven content, which tends to be very sales focused. The more that you can share value-driven content, value-focused content, the more people will be engaged with your brand, the more subscribers you'll get, and the more conversions that ultimately creates for you. And then the other piece of this, like with kind of piggybacking on the concept of the promotional content versus value add content, is that value add content is often something that your sales team can use in conversations. They can use it as a reason to reach out to someone. We just wrote this great article. I thought you might find it useful. It gives them a reason to reach out without being salesy. I actually just got an email this morning about changes that are happening with email deliverability within iOS and Gmail. Decreasing your deliverability based on whether you're delivering value add content or sales focused content. And so I believe that we're going to continue to see that trend, that sales teams need to leverage thought leadership and that, I keep saying value, but that value-based content to continue to progress folks through the pipeline. So that content actually creates almost a little jumpstart on your sales engine, because it's something that gives your team a reason to reach out. It gives them a non-sales based reason to reach out, which is critical for your sales team. On top of that, really being focused on ROI instead of being focused on evergreen content strategy, and not ROI of your products, ROI for your customers. What challenges are they facing? How can they solve those challenges? What is the final impact on their business when they solve those challenges? Evergreen content is something that we've really focused on in marketing for the last 10 years, and that is out. That is not something that's going to help you really thrive. That's a foundational strategy that is really outdated at this point. So if someone tells you that they're going to focus on your marketing team, tells you they're going to focus on creating evergreen content, try to re-strategize that with them, because that content is just not going to really move the needle for you. It's not going to get you big wins. It's not going to generate leads. It's not going to help you get ahead in Google search or AI search. You really need that ROI focused content in order to make yourself stand out. So what's winning in content? Relevant, timely, thought leadership content, just like we just talked about. Really focusing on that with them. What's in it for me? What do I get out of this? Why should I read this? Producing content for the sake of content is not going to really help you move things forward with your prospects. And collaboration between sales and marketing. I didn't really touch on this on the last slide, but one of the biggest drivers of success that I have seen over the past year is when organizations really partner sales and marketing together. Traditionally, sales and marketing are siloed. And that creates a huge disconnect between what marketing thinks is important and what conversation your sales team is having with prospects. And that conversation with prospects really needs to inform what type of content and what tactics your marketing team is using. Your sales team is the one out there meeting with people. Your marketing team is the one filling the top of the funnel. So those two groups really need to be working together. Depending on the size of your organization, that might be a weekly touch point, bi-weekly or monthly, but making sure that you have that regular connection and a way for those two groups to work together is really critical to your success this year. Now we're going to talk about my favorite topic of 2026. So if I get a little long-winded on this, I'm sorry, but I do think this is really important. And I actually think that the concept of a social media influencer is going to overtake the healthcare market, pretty much every market, but really this market is going to see so many opportunities when they use this strategy to grow their organization. So when you think of a social media influencer, you probably think of someone on TikTok who is producing a bunch of little videos, little shorts, and doing little dances. We actually produced our first linked influencer, which was a client of ours who has been a client for about 8 years. He called me one day. Yeah, we started working with them in 2018. And we started with just kind of a foundational LinkedIn strategy, posting a couple of times a week on their company page and on his personal page, and sending out, a monthly newsletter. And we've ramped that up quite a bit since then. And his daughter has actually helped us get more personal content pushed out on his feed. And he called me one day and he said, "You never will guess what happened." And I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Someone recognized me on an airplane because of my LinkedIn content." And I think that that's when you know we really made it in this space, right? Like someone's recognizing you outside of the internet because of the content that you're sharing. And when we look at kind of the market at large for social media in healthcare, one of the things that you'll notice is that on TikTok, there are healthcare influencers. On Instagram, there are healthcare influencers. There's been a rise in the healthcare influencer across the internet. And we're now seeing that really translate to LinkedIn as well. And for many organizations, thinking about their team and their brand as an influencer is an easy way to kind of understand how to bring more of that human element into their marketing. Where we see big gains is when your team can be really engaged in the marketing that you're creating and they can kind of run with it and make it their own. When you have people on your team that are actively posting on LinkedIn and becoming their own brand, their own personal brand online, it benefits your organization because it's bringing people into your sphere. It's going to create more followers for you. It's going to create more engagement on your regular content. And it's also going to help you create brand visibility in a way that companies have really struggled, especially in the B2B space, to create. Where we're seeing the biggest wins, even in the CPG market, is with user-generated content. So big brands, Pepsi, Coke, All those brands that you think of as like big marketing brands, they invest millions and millions and millions of dollars into their marketing. They spend a lot of money on commercials, but what's outperforming those millions and millions of dollars for them is the user generated content on social media. So you have little micro influencers who are just creating content and linking to products, affiliate marketing essentially. We are going to see that explode in the B2B space over the coming probably 24 months, but we have already started to see it become influential. So how can you get your team to become a influencer for you? You need to give them the tools to share content. So foundationally, like, share, comment. Like, share, and comment on the brand post, right? On our company page, make sure you're liking it, make sure you're commenting on it, make sure you're sharing it. As they get more comfortable with that, encourage them to post on their own channel once a week. Let them become a thought leader in your industry. The more thought leaders you have at your company, the more visibility you get, the more people are going to be coming over to look at your company, to engage with your company. What channels should they be active on? That really depends on your company. If you work with us, you already know it's LinkedIn, but there's also many other channels that could be influential depending on where your team wants to be active. If they have a lot of knowledge about different social media platforms, they may choose a different social media platform, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a LinkedIn influencer in order for it to be impactful for you. But you need a strategy around how you're going to implement this. You need to give them the tools to do it well. You need to give them parameters, especially if they're representing your company, which means you definitely need a social media policy if you do not already have one. If you don't have one, reach out to me and I will connect you with the HR company that we use for those types of things for our clients. And you also need to know who's going to own the channel. Like, what are your expectations? You need to lay that foundation with your team. We're going to get into this specific topic on a much deeper level on February 19th. If you'd like to be invited to that, we will be announcing that next week. But if you'd like to sign up sooner than that, you can respond to the email from this webinar and Grace will get you signed up. And we're going to talk a little bit more about like what it means to be an online influencer, how you can kind of be the mayor online and encourage your team to be the mayor online, and how to create intentional visibility using this strategy. But the brands that act like influencers, that empower their team to be thought leaders, that are constantly bringing value and insight to their market instead of just always selling, those are the tactics that are going to help you win in 2026. So who wins this year with a multi-touch attribution strategy? This is a huge part of how we build plans for our clients, and I really encourage you to use this within your own marketing. Most companies think of, especially in B2B marketing, they really think of the sales pipeline as kind of the goal. Those are the people that you're engaged with. Those are the people who obviously know who you are. That's where you're going to spend a lot of your sales team is going to spend a lot of their time. I am a huge believer, and this has been a very successful strategy for our clients, to take a multi-layered pipeline approach. This helps you have kind of a more visual way of looking at your marketing pipeline, your mid-funnel, which is where your SDRs might be reaching out, or it might just be more of an engaged audience that you have a stronger, more strategic nurturing strategy for. But this multi-layered pipeline, which I will show you a visual for in just a second, is really, really effective. It helps your team kind of get into the mindset of looking at prospects in a more strategic way. And it also helps you really understand how many people you need in the top of your funnel, the top of your mid-funnel, and the top of your pipeline in order to achieve your goals for 2026 and beyond. This is how you get to a point where people feel like they see you everywhere, because you're understanding how many times you need to engage with them before they've actually built trust in you and built trust in your brand. Obviously, you don't want to market just for the sake of marketing. You want to focus on creating quality touch points with prospects, but you also need a baseline. So let's talk about this whole concept of taking 22 interactions with someone before they are willing to trust you, set up a call with you, set up a demo, and also look at what that foundational marketing plan should look like. It takes today, based on our research and based on the work that we do, it takes about 22 interactions to get a prospect to do a call, to schedule a call with you. That means they trust you enough to either schedule a demo or schedule a call. In some spaces, especially very niche spaces that are more regulatory driven, it might actually be higher than that. But for most companies in healthcare, it's about 22 interactions. So what does that look like? Well, the first thing that you need to do is really look at that visual pipeline that I just mentioned. So you have your sales pipeline. Everybody knows what a sales pipeline is. But above your sales pipeline, you have those people that kind of know who you are, but they haven't booked a demo, they haven't booked a call. And that's what we call the nurturing pipeline. And then above that, we have the marketing pipeline where they're not really getting any kind of sales interaction. They are really coming in at the top of the funnel. They're warming up to your brand. They're learning who you are and deciding if they want to engage with you. That marketing pipeline is really essential for cold outreach. So that's helping you identify prospects that should know who you are, but maybe don't know who you are, growing your pipeline from the top down. It is creating visibility for your brand. So going to events, it's doing all of kind of those high level traditional marketing things that get you brand presence, but don't necessarily convert prospects into buyers. The big thing to remember with each step of this process is that we're always thinking about what's next. If you don't know what comes next for that individual in your pipeline, you are not being strategic enough with what you're doing. So if you have an event and you know that you're going to go to this event and you're going to have a booth at this event and whatnot, but you don't know what happens after the event for anybody that you talk to at the event, you haven't put enough strategy into that event. So are we going to take all of those business cards that we collect at that event and drop people into a drip campaign? Are they going on our newsletter list? Are we doing some direct outreach to them? You always have to be thinking about what's next and have that plan for who is responsible for making those next steps happen. Otherwise, we call that a random act of marketing. And we don't do random acts of marketing because they don't create ROI. So we're always thinking about what's next in these strategies as we're talking about them. That's really important as we get deeper into your marketing strategy because you only have so much budget and you only have so much bandwidth. So how are we maximizing that? We're mostly maximizing that by making sure that we're only committing to things that we know are going to convert prospects for us. The second stage of the pipeline is the nurturing pipeline. So our marketing pipeline sits up here. Our nurturing pipeline sits right in between marketing and sales. Nurturing is where we sometimes call this our SDR pipeline. So this is where SDR outreach is happening. But these are people who have engaged in your content. How many times they've engaged really depends on how much content you send out and what your market looks like. But this is where we start sending those targeted drip campaigns, getting really niched down into specific services or products that they're buying from you. The volume of outreach is going to vary depending on who those prospects are and how engaged with you they are. The more engaged that they are, the more you should be reaching out to them. This is where your SDRs, if you have them, should be maximizing outreach. So they should be picking up the phone and calling to complement the marketing sequences that are going out. They should be connecting on LinkedIn. They should be doing everything that they can to offer a human touch point to those prospects in the pipeline so that we're moving them closer and closer to a call with the sales team or a demo with the sales team, depending on your market. And this is where you can get really niche down with your content because these are people who are engaging. You can see what they're engaging with. You can see what's making an impact for them. And you can produce more content like that to give you a reason to reach out to them. So it kind of works like a wheel where you're constantly kind of looking at what's working and what's creating engagement and doing more and more and more of that and getting that into the hands of the people that are engaging with it. Obviously, always also planning what's next. What are they going to do next? What's the next stage in the process for them? And then your sales pipeline is at the bottom of the funnel, which is where sales takes over. Your marketing outreach should change when someone hits the sales pipeline. They shouldn't be getting as much marketing outreach from you. That should really be coming from the sales team. That should be very personalized and be filling their inbox with personalized outreach. It should be communication that's coming directly from your sales team and not from someone that's an SDR or on your marketing team. But what does that look like from the ground up? So we always tell our clients to start with the sales pipeline and look at how many deals we need to close in the next year to hit our goals. Once we know that, we look at what's our close rate. So once someone ends up in our sales pipeline, what is the likelihood that they'll actually buy from us? You take that information and you use it to inform the next layer up. So you work backwards and look at if this is how many deals we need to close, and this is how many this is our close rate. What does that look like a step above that? How many people do we need to be talking to in order to make that happen? And then work backwards from there to multiply that to look at how many people actually need to be in our pipeline in order to make that happen. Usually that's about a 10x multiplier. It depends a little bit on the specific niche of the market that you're in. I'm happy to calculate that for you if you reach out to me, but you do need to kind of work that backwards. And that's how, it's really just numbers. How many people do we need to be talking to? How many people need to be aware of us in order for us to hit this bigger goal this year? So where do you start? This is all very overwhelming. It's a lot of information. What do you do with it? First of all, you need to audit your foundation. You need to look at how consistent your content is. Are you consistently pushing content on LinkedIn? Are you consistently pushing out newsletters? Do you have content that's going out, thought leadership content that's going out on your website or webinars that you're hosting? What does that look like for you? And what is the frequency? What is your channel mix? Just like we eat a variety of different foods in our diet, we need a variety of channels that we're using to outreach to prospects through. The more that we can mix that up, the more they feel like they're seeing us everywhere, and the more they're going to remember us, which means they're going to think of us when they're ready to buy. What is your human presence quotient? So how many people are actually appearing in your marketing? If you don't have people appearing in your marketing, that's where you need to start. How can you get more of that human presence invested in your market in order to kind of meet those expectations and also make people feel like you're real humans behind the scenes of the business and not just content? And then what does your sales enablement look like? How are we helping the sales team not only prospect better, but convert more prospects into potential buyers? Like, how do we get them across that finish line to schedule that sales call or to schedule that demo? Once you've assessed all of those things, my recommendation is to create a foundation for your marketing. So this is the baseline. We don't go below this. This is where we always start. We always have this content up and running. And how do we create consistency with this content specifically before we add anything else into the mix? My recommendation for that is typically to have a social media content foundation, at least 2 posts a week. For B2B marketing, you can get by with 2 posts on LinkedIn weekly. You will get more engagement on content that goes out on personal profiles. So creating a mix of company page and personal content is really important. But that is typically our baseline. We have a few clients that post less frequently than that. But most of our clients sit at that 2 post a week baseline. If you are B2C and you are trying to sell into customers that are more consumer based on different platforms like Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, you need to be posting much more frequently than that. Typically, my recommendation would be 4 to 5 posts a week as your foundation. You need to get consistent with your email marketing. Email is still, I know it sounds archaic, but email is still the #1 way to reach your audience. So you need a strong email strategy. I recommend starting with a once a month email, whether that is a personal email or a newsletter. It depends on how much content you're producing and how much value you can create. That can be, you can use content that you've created for other platforms to populate your newsletter. Or to populate that personal email so that it's just value-driven content and you're not reinventing the wheel. But I would try to get consistent with at least 1 email a month in order to stay consistently in front of your audience outside of social media. You need regular sales and marketing meetings. So this comes back to using sales to inform marketing and letting marketing support sales. They need to be collaborative. So figure out what that consistent meeting cadence needs to be and get it on the calendar and let it start helping to inform your strategy every single month. And I would recommend consistent thought leadership, whether that's 1 or 4 articles a month, depends on how much bandwidth you have. I would recommend, more content is always better, but again, don't create content just to create content. Make sure it's good content that you're producing. But getting that foundation of consistent thought leadership is what's going to help you build value, and it gets people starting to look for your content in the future. What all of this does is, one, it gives you consistent outreach to prospects. Two, it gives you credibility. So the first thing that someone does when they hear about you, or they get an email from you, or they see you somewhere, is they Google you. And when they Google you, they're going to land a couple of different places. One, they're going to land on your website. And if your website is bare bones and has no content, they're going to think you're fly by night. They're not going to trust you. So having that thought leadership on your site is really important. The second place they're going to land is on your social media. And if your social media is not updated, if you don't push out regular content, again, you're not building credibility with them. When they land on those pages and all of a sudden they see all this content and they can read an article, or they can skim an article, or they can look at social media content, you've immediately built more rapport with them than someone who's starting from from nothing. So it's very important that you have that foundation before you invest in other marketing. Consistency with a few tactics is going to beat out everything. So even if this is all you do, if you don't do any other marketing outside of this, you will still see gains in your year. Like, this basic foundational marketing plan is very effective, and it will help you start to build traction. Do not add to this until you get consistent with this, because consistency really is the key to all of the success that you'll see with your marketing plan. Once you get that foundation in place, you're going to look at what makes sense for us to add. In my opinion, the things that I have recommended that our clients and our network add in 2026 are heavily focused on content. So webinars, content, human content, but they're relatively low cost. They are relatively easy to produce, much easier than flying a bunch of people out for a conference or a trade show that you're speaking at, and much less costly. That staff content creation piece is critical. I really believe that that's going to be the biggest game changer for companies this year. It is a big lift. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Getting your team to start creating their own content in addition to what your company is creating is not going to be a light lift. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to require training. It's going to require ongoing support from your marketing team. But the companies that do that are going to see more gains than anybody else. That is my prediction for 2026. AEO, optimized blog content. So that's, again, for that AI search. AI is becoming more and more a part of our world, as much as some of us don't want it to be part of our world. And so making sure that you are creating content that is unique, that is going to get you into AI search, is really important. Looking at even really strategic ways that you can get incorporated into AI search results is important. I just saw the other day that the Presswire that we use for distributing press releases is now getting that content archived with Anthropic and with ChatGPT. And so, knowing that there's different ways that you can kind of maximize the content that you're already producing for AI search is valuable. So look for those types of opportunities where you don't have to create something new. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just use the right service to push your content out into the world to get archived within those platforms so that you start to pop up in those search results. Database management. This is something that a lot of companies overlook, but with the changes that are happening in email marketing right now, and the restrictions that we're seeing, and the deliverability concerns that companies have, making sure that your database is very clean, that you have high deliverability with your contacts, that you're removing people who are not engaged, that you are not continuing to email people after you get a no longer with this company bounce back, that you are removing them from your list, that you are being really strategic about how frequently you email people that are less engaged in your emails. Those types of things are going to become more and more important, and they're going to make or break your email program. So being more strategic with that, cleaning your database regularly. I actually had a client, I think 2 years ago, who was re-engaging an email list that they had not used in a long time. And they did not clean it. They didn't run it through, you can use services to clean your email list. So you could go to like Neverbounce and run your email list through that for maybe depending on how many contacts you have, $20 or $30, and it will tell you, it will remove anybody that's no longer with that company or email addresses that are not active. It's not expensive. It's not complicated. It's just an extra step in the process. They did not do that. And they wound up having a 30% bounce rate because the email list was so old, and that still haunts them today. They had gotten flagged with their email delivery service, which was HubSpot, and it really damaged their sender reputation. So I really recommend that you invest in database management. It's not expensive. You just need someone to manage it internally and make sure that you're consistently looking at who's engaging with your content and removing people that are no longer at those companies or that are not engaging over a long period of time. Looking at email sequence development, getting more and more targeted with those email sequences that you're sending out so that they're really, really relevant to the people that are receiving them. That means you're going to have to spend a little bit more time segmenting your audience so that you're hitting the right people with the right message at the right time. But it's going to be so worth it because it's going to create bigger gains for you, and it's going to help you build a stronger relationship with those people that are reading the emails. And then looking at PR and credibility building, which is not something that I talked a whole lot about today, but one of the things that we are seeing become more important is in thought leadership and general market presence is how frequently you're picked up by the press. So getting strategic about your organic strategy and how you're pitching stories to the press will become more and more important this year. I also think that paid opportunities will become more important, looking at how you can position your company. It's not about what you do, it's about how you're perceived. It's essentially kind of the concept here. And if you're perceived as an expert because you are writing articles for Forbes, then that's a win for you in the market. But you can participate in Forbes Business Council for, I think, $5,000 a year to get those articles placed, which is a relatively low investment for a company that's looking to build credibility. Looking for opportunities like that, I think, are going to become more and more important. Of course, if you have questions, you can drop them in the comments and I'll try to answer them as we're going here. Where not to spend. This is personal preference based on my work as a fractional CMO at dozens of companies in healthcare. Don't do events for the sake of events. They are so expensive. They are hard to capitalize on. If you can attend and schedule meetings with people instead of exhibiting, do it. I am all for getting really scrappy with how you're maximizing events in 2026. That is a great way to save money and reallocate funds in your budget this year. One-off thought leadership is not going to help you. If you can produce one article a month, that's fine. If you cannot consistently do that, don't do it. Don't invest in it. If you can produce an article, if you can get a PR placement, for example, in one publication, but you're not going to pursue a greater strategy, it's not really going to benefit you. So if you have to pay for that, don't pay for it. If it's free, that's a little different. Evergreen content. Again, like I am not a believer in evergreen content. I used to be a huge believer in evergreen content. It's actually where my career started. So to say this feels a little bit sacrilege, but don't invest in evergreen content because that content is not moving the needle for you. It's generic. It's not going to create any wins. And so it's just wasted money in your budget, in my opinion. And then campaigns without multi-touch follow-up plans. If you don't know what that next step is, if you don't have a follow-up plan for every step of your funnel, from marketing to nurturing to the sales pipeline, you're investing too broadly in your marketing plan, and you need to get a little bit more narrow so that you can focus on those next steps and being really targeted with your approach so that you're always creating ROI for both the individual that you're reaching out to, that prospect, and for your budget. What is the biggest budget killer? There's actually two. Since we're talking about budget, I thought this was kind of fun for us to talk about. The number one budget killer that I see is when businesses have really great marketing that they can't get across the finish line because they have too many stakeholders who constantly want edits to it. This is a bigger problem in healthcare than I've seen in any other market, for good reason. There's a lot of regulatory pressure. There's a lot of compliance pressure in healthcare. But if you are struggling to create wins with your marketing, look at whether you're getting that marketing across the finish line quickly. And if you aren't, you need to revisit your process for approvals, because marketing that never sees the light of day is not worth investing in. And that's going to happen from time to time. You are going to have pieces that just become outdated before they actually go live and you're going to scrap them. It happens to everybody. But if you're consistently seeing that happen in your organization, something needs to change because you are wasting money that you're not realizing ROI from. The second budget killer that we see in marketing is, do I even remember what I wrote down here? I lost my place in my notes. Oh, not yeah. The other piece we've already kind of talked to death, but I'll bring it up. Not having a next step plan. Like this means your prospect is not moving forward and you're going to lose them. So if you're not moving that prospect through your pipeline, if you're not continuing to move them through the process, if you don't have a next step assigned for them, they're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden you come back to them 6 months, 8 months, a year later, and you're basically starting from scratch because they've forgotten who you are, or you don't have that like momentum that you had already built with them from whatever you were doing before. So make sure you always have that next step plan in queue. The easiest way to manage all of this is to really set yourself up with a quarterly marketing plan. So map out your vision for the next 90 days and let that be all you do. So you're going to map out your social, map out your emails, map out your blogs, map out all of the things that you're going to accomplish over the coming 90 days. And that's it. We're not changing that. Unless we can't accomplish those things, that's it. We're not adding anything to that. Commonly in marketing, we see lots of good ideas being produced, and those good ideas sometimes take precedence over ideas that are already in the hopper. And then another idea comes along and knocks that idea off after it's gotten a little bit of traction, and then another one comes in. And that's an easy way to kill your momentum. So having a running list of those types of ideas that come up is a great way to identify what you want to work on next, but also really keep a handle on what we're working on right now. Be really concrete with what we're investing in, making sure that we're getting ROI out of the tactics that we're investing in, and then reevaluating at the end of every 90 days, whether there's something that we want to remove from the plan, if there's something that we want to add to the plan, and being really strategic about bandwidth, because marketing teams have a tendency to take on too much. They get stretched too thin. They can't accomplish everything. So making sure that you're really intentional with that bandwidth and what tactics are taking up that bandwidth is how you will build a lot more momentum for your sales team with your marketing in this entire process. If I were to choose, I bet you can guess, if I were to choose one extra tactic for 2026, what would it be? It would absolutely be investing in a staff influencer plan. So investing resources into helping my team become thought leaders online. That would be what I would invest in. I think that's the easiest win. I think it covers a lot of bases, and I think it's actually going to reduce your overall budget long term because it's going to create more momentum and more traction in the market when you have 50 people talking about your business online versus having one company page and 3 leaders. So your next 90 days, your plan is get your foundation consistent, the foundation that we just talked about. Identify subject matter experts at your company. You may have up and coming subject matter experts. You may have existing people that you can rely on, but identify who those people are so that you can start looping them into content, looping them into ideas, seeing if they want to contribute. Set realistic growth goals. Don't go overboard and expect to see huge gains in every single tactic, but set realistic goals that you can measure and track over the coming 90 days so that you can see what's working and what's not. Remember that month over month traction is not always accurate in marketing. 90 days to 90 days is much more accurate, and or looking at 30 days year over year. That's where you're going to really see the numbers create real results for you. That's where you can use those numbers to inform your marketing strategy. Month over month can get tricky, especially because we see kind of a roller coaster throughout the year. We see dips in marketing typically from December 1 through January 15th. We see dips in online readership over the summer months. So if you're comparing September to August, that's going to give you a really skewed result looking at your numbers for September. If you look at the month of December over the month of November, it's going to make you think you're failing in December when really it's just a really typical dip in the market that we see. But if you look at December this year versus December last year, you'll see a much different picture. And then just choose one thing to implement on top of your foundational plan. Don't go crazy because, again, bandwidth is a huge problem. So for most of our clients, so look at implementing one thing and implementing that one thing really well. Once you have consistency with that tactic, look at adding to it. Upcoming, if this was interesting to you and or your team, we have 2 upcoming webinars in February. One is February 5th, where Toby Kinzel of the Radiant Key will be joining me next week, actually, to talk about investing in your people in 2026. Toby is amazing. She's actually doing a leadership development program for some of our clients, and she's going to be sharing some of those insights and some things that you can be doing to drive productivity, efficiency, and stronger culture. So that's going to be a great session next week. And then on the 19th, we have that tactical guide to building an employee influencer program that will build upon some of the things that we talked about today. We would love to have you at either or both of those. You can reach out to me directly, Courtney@amplifyup.com. You can reach out to my team via hello@amplifyup.com, which is the email where you receive that sent you all of your webinar registration emails, or editor@briviohealth.com if you have content ideas for our Brivio platform. I am thrilled that you could join us today. If you have questions, reach out, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.